The cave mouth yawned ahead, half hidden by curtains of hanging moss. She dove inside, gagging on the stench of decay. The walls glistened with mucus and the floor squelched underfoot, littered with bones, some animal, some human. A rusted lantern lay in the dirt, its fuel long evaporated. She flicked on her flashlight, the beam trembling over graffiti etched into the stone. They see through the roots. Burn yourself before it's too late. Zorian lies. At the cave's rear, a skeleton slumped against the wall, its fingers still clutching a journal. The pages were mold-soft but legible. Dr. Saskia Von, Entry 23. The pods are not seeds, they're anchors, each one grown from a fragment of the weave's core sent back to reshape the past. But the hive-mind isn't the future, it's a branch. The weave is at war with itself. Zorian's faction wants domination. Others want coexistence. Destroying the pod won't erase humanity. It'll choose which future grows. Thalia's head throbbed. The infection had reached her shoulder, her skin mottled with emerald veins. She tore a page from the journal, stuffing it into her pack. Liar! She spun. Zorian stood in the entrance, his body a silhouette of bark and sinew, eyes glowing like dying stars. Saskia feared the truth. The weave is humanity. To reject it is to extinguish yourself. Thalia raised the flamethrower. You're not my future. No, he said softly, I'm your punishment. The cave erupted. Roots burst from the walls, snaking around her legs. Thalia torched them, the flames sputtering as fuel reserves dwindled. Zorian advanced, unhurried, his body absorbing the fire. You fight for a world that hates you, that used you. The weave offers purpose. She stumbled into a crevice, the grenade slipping from her pocket. Zorian loomed, his hand elongating into a blade of bone. Your brother begged for the gift. He said you defollow. The words broke her. She pulled the pin. The explosion shattered the cave. Thalia woke to rain. The cliffside trembled, debris from the collapsed cave tumbling into the valley below. Her left arm was gone, severed at the shoulder by shrapnel, the wound cauterized by flame. The infection, though, remained. It writhed in her remaining veins, a feverish pulse whispering promises of regeneration. Zorian's voice echoed from the rubble. You only burned yourself. She crawled to the edge. The pod's spire dominated the valley, its roots now visible, a sprawling network dissolving the rainforest into primordial ooze. Human shapes dangled from the roots, cocooned in resin. Loggers, villagers, a boy with Lucas's smile. The flamethrower lay shattered nearby. One grenade remained. Thalia closed her eyes. The hive's song swelled, no longer angry, mournful. Why do you fear becoming more? She stood, clutching the grenade, because more isn't human. The valley blurred as she fell. The grenade's fire bloomed at the spire's base. The hive screamed. Thalia's body shattered on impact, her blood igniting the ooze. As the spire crumbled, the cocoons burst open, their occupants dissolving into ash. But in the smoke, a single tendril survived. It slithered into the fissure, carrying a shard of Thalia's DNA and her defiance into the deep. The verdant weave would remember. And adapt. Chapter 5. Thalia's ears rang. Smoke coiled around her, thick and acrid, stinging her eyes as she clawed her way out of the rubble. The grenade's blast had torn through the spire's base, leaving a crater choked with splintered bone and smoldering resin. Her left arm was a ruin, the infection's emerald veins now blackened and brittle where the flames had licked her skin. She dragged herself forward, every breath a knife in her ribs, and pressed her back against a jagged shard of the spire. The jungle around her hissed, not with the usual chorus of life, but with the wet, guttural rasp of the hive regrouping. The ground trembled. From the crater's depths, roots surged upward, braiding into a new structure, a grotesque archway pulsating with bioluminescent sacs. Thalia's vision blurred. The infection had reached her collarbone, her veins glowing faintly green beneath the soot. She fumbled for the last incendiary charge in her pack, her fingers numb. Burn it all, but the charge's casing was cracked, its fluid leaking into the dirt. Useless. A voice slithered into her mind, smooth as oil. You are persistent, but persistence without purpose is tedious. Zorian emerged from the smoke, his form shifting. One moment he was a man sheathed in bark, the next a tangle of vines shaped into a humanoid silhouette. His eyes, if they were eyes, flickered with the same green fire that had consumed Ren. Thalia spat blood. You're just a ghost, our idea. Ideas are the only immortality, he said, kneeling beside her. His hand, cold and root-like, brushed her infected shoulder. She recoiled, but his touch froze her, tendrils snaking under her skin. The weave remembers every host, every sacrifice, even your brother. Her breath hitched. Lucas drowned. He's gone. Gone, Zorian's voice fractured into laughter. The boy who taught you to swim, who held your head above the waves when you panicked. His fear, his love, it's all here. You could hold him again. A root lashed from the archway, wrapping around her waist. Thalia screamed as it yanked her into the crater. The world dissolved. She fell through layers of rotting biomass, the hive's roots parting like curtains. The air grew thick, humid, alive with the scent of blooming fungi and decay. When she landed, it was on a floor of living tissue, spongy and warm. Thalia staggered upright. She stood in a cavernous chamber, its walls ribbed with cartilage, the ceiling dripping nutrient-rich fluid. Before her loomed the heart of the weave, a massive, pulsing orb veined with light, its surface studded with human faces frozen in ecstatic silence. Ren, his face swelled from the orb, eyes milky and unseeing. Taro, Ludo, and there half-formed, her own features twisted in a scream. "This is the cradle," Zorian said, materializing beside her. His voice echoed from the walls, "where the weave integrates flesh and purpose. Your brother is here, let me show you." He pressed a hand to the orb. The flesh parted, revealing a memory, not hers, but theirs. The memory. A sunlit lake, Lucas, 12 years old, grinning as he waded into the water. Thalia, 9, hesitated at the shore. "Come on, Thals, it's just mud," he called. She followed, laughing, until the undertow grabbed her ankles. Lucas dragged her up, his arms shaking. "I've got you, always." The scene fractured. Lucas's face aged, a teenager, then a man, his skin peeling into bark, his eyes hollowing into glowing pits. "I've got you," the hive Lucas rasped, tendrils erupting from his mouth. Thalia wrenched free. "That's not him." "Isn't it?" Zorian gestured to the orb. "We preserve what matters. Your grief, your guilt, their chains. The weave offers freedom." She lunged for him, but roots pinned her. The chamber quaked, the orb's light intensifying. Faces melted and reformed, loggers, villagers, strangers from futures and pasts, all whispering in unison. "Join, rest, become." Thalia's infection flared, the emerald veins branching across her chest. Her vision doubled. She saw the cavern and overlaying it, the future city from the river vision, towers of fused bone, streets thrumming with symbiotic life. No pain, no loneliness, no Thalia. Zorian's voice softened. "You fought so hard, let go." Her remaining hand found the cracked incendiary charge. The explosion tore through the chamber. Fire rippled across the orb, faces screaming as one. Zorian howled, his form unraveling into vines. Thalia fell, the roots holding her crumbling to ash. She landed in a tunnel, the hive's walls contracting around her, spewing acidic fluid. She crawled, the fire spreading, the weave's screams echoing in her skull. The tunnel narrowed, ahead daylight, real, unfiltered by the hive's biomass. Thalia dragged herself toward it, her infected arm disintegrating, flesh sloughing off in glowing chunks. She breached the surface as the ground collapsed behind her. The jungle was silent. Thalia collapsed at the base of a cedar, its bark untouched by the hive's corruption. The fire raged in the distance, the spire's remnants collapsing into ash. Her body shuddered, the infection retreating, starved of the weave's core. She laughed, a wet, broken sound. "It's over." A shadow fell over her. Dr. Saskia Von stood there, her lab coat pristine, eyes glowing faintly green. "You didn't think it'd be that easy, did you?" Thalia's heart stalled. "You're dead." "Dead, no." Saskia knelt, her hand cold as she pressed a vial of black fluid to Thalia's lips. "The weave is a hydra. Burn one head to grow. Drink. This ends only when you choose it to." Thalia spat in her face. The liquid burned her tongue, her vision darkening. When she woke, the fire was out. The jungle steamed, regenerating at impossible speed, vines knitting over scorched earth, trees rising from ash. Thalia's arm was whole again, the skin smooth, unblemished. But her reflection in a rain puddle told the truth. Her eyes glowed. In the distance, a new spire budded. The weave hummed in her bones. Welcome home. Chapter 6. Thalia woke to the sound of her own breath, ragged and alien, as if someone else's lungs had been grafted into her chest. The air tasted metallic, laced with the sweetness of blooming rot. She lay on a bed of moss that shouldn't exist, velvet soft and feverishly warm, its threads weaving through her hair like fingers. Above her, the sky was a bruise, the sun smothered behind a lattice of vines that had grown overnight, their tendrils dripping a viscous sap that hissed where it struck the ground. She sat up, her body too light, too wrong. Her left arm, the one that had been eaten by fire and regrown by the hive, glowed faintly under the skin, emerald bioluminescence mapping the veins like circuitry. The new spire dominated the northern horizon, taller than the last, its surface a mosaic of fused bone and chlorophyll black steel. It pulsed, a slow, rhythmic throb that echoed in Thalia's teeth. She stood, her boots sinking into the moss, and pressed a hand to her chest. Her heartbeat synced with the spire's. "You're still ours," the weave whispered, not in her mind but in her marrow. She stumbled toward a nearby stream, its waters choked with gelatinous algae that parted as she approached. Her reflection stared back, a stranger with starfire eyes and skin marbled with luminous veins. The infection had spread to her throat, tendrils of green creeping toward her jawline. She splashed water on her face, but the algae clung to her, squirming into her pores. With a cry, she scraped it off, leaving raw streaks across her cheeks. The forest watched. It had regenerated faster than before. Trees that had been ash hours earlier now stood whole, their bark etched with spiral patterns that seemed to shift when she looked away. Flowers with serrated petals tracked her movement, their centers puckering as if to speak. Thalia shouldered her pack, empty now except for a dented canteen and the shattered remains of Saskia's satellite tablet, and began to walk. The jungle's voice grew louder with each step. At first it was a hum, resonant and low, like the drone of distant machinery. Then came the words, slithering between the trees in languages she didn't know but somehow understood. "Why fight? You're already part of the bloom." She clamped her hands over her ears, but the sound wasn't sound. It vibrated in her teeth, her ribs, the hollows of her bones. She found the first corpse near a termite mound. It was a logger she recognized, Gareth, who'd smuggled candy bars to the crew and joked about retiring to a beach in Bahia. His body had been split open like a seed pod, ribs splayed outward, his chest cavity packed with bioluminescent fungi. His face, though pristine, smiling, turned to follow her as she passed. "Almost there, boss," the corpse said, Gareth's voice intact. "Keep going." Thalia ran. The river was gone. In its place stretched a chasm, its edges raw and glistening as if torn open minutes earlier. Below, a subterranean chamber throbbed with the same sickly light as the spire. Thalia crouched at the precipice, her infected arm trembling. Roots braided into makeshift staircases coiled down the chasm walls, their surfaces studded with bulbous growths that wept oily tears. The weave's pulse was deafening here, a subsonic roar that made her vision blur. She descended. The chamber was a cathedral of flesh. Walls of muscle-like tissue contracted rhythmically, their surfaces veined with capillaries that pumped not blood but a luminous sap. The floor undulated, alive, each step sinking into a sponge of half-formed organs and neural tissue. At the center stood Zorian, or a shadow of him, his body a shifting amalgam of bark and sinew, his face a composite of everyone the Hive had taken. Ren's smirk, Ludo's milky eye, Saskia's austere brow. "You're late," he said, his voice a chorus. Thalia's canteen slipped from her grip, rolling into a crevice that snapped shut like a mouth. "Where's Lucas?" Zorian's face settled into her brother, the way he'd looked at 12, freckled and sunburned, his hair bleached by salt water. "Here," he said, pointing to the chamber's heart. A figure hung suspended in a cocoon of resin, its features blurred but achingly familiar. Lucas's hands pressed against the membrane, his mouth open in a silent scream. "Let him go," Thalia whispered. "He's not trapped," Zorian said. "He's evolving." The cocoon split. Lucas spilled onto the floor, his body a grotesque tapestry of boy and bloom. One arm remained human, clutching a faded snorkel mask. The other was a tangle of thorns and creeper vines. His face flickered between childhood innocence and something hollow, ancient. "Thals," he rasped, his voice breaking. You came back." She fell to her knees. "Lucas, You left me," his human eye welled with tears. The other, a cluster of glowing spores, stared unblinking. "You let me drown." "No," she choked. "I tried to save you. The current, it was too strong." "Liar," Lucas's thorns lashed out, carving a shallow gash across her cheek. "You swam, you lived." Zorian watched, his form flickering. "Guilt is such a fragile thing. The weave can absolve it. Let us." Thalia's infected arm twitched, tendrils writhing under her skin as if eager to burst free. She gripped her wrist, nails drawing blood. "You're not my brother." "Aren't I?" Lucas's thorns retracted, his expression softening. He reached out, his human hand trembling. "Stay with me, please." She hesitated. The chamber shuddered. The explosion came from above, a rain of debris and fire. Saskia's voice crackled through the chaos, amplified by the Hive's biomass. "Terminate the core, now." Thalia recoiled. Saskia stood on the chasm's edge, her body encased in a biomechanical exoskeleton, a flamethrower roaring in her hands. "It's a trap, Thalia. The core's not here, it's you." Zorian snarled, his form unraveling into a storm of roots. "You ruin everything." The chamber convulsed. Lucas screamed as the floor dissolved, his body dragged into the biomass. Thalia lunged, grabbing his human hand. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. His thorns pierced her palm. Join me. The infection surged, tendrils erupting from her arm and fusing with his. The hive's memories flooded her, Lucas's drowning, yes, but also his laughter, his fear, his wanting. The weave's truth seared her. It wasn't a conqueror. It was a refugee, fleeing a future where humanity's arrogance had scorched the earth. Saskia's flames engulfed the chamber. Burn it. Thalia looked at Lucas, her brother, her guilt, her failure, and let go. The fire spread faster than thought. Thalia crawled through the inferno, the hive's screams a symphony of anguish. Saskia hauled her up the roots, the exoskeleton's joints screaming under their combined weight. Behind them, the spire cracked, its core, a pulsing orb of Thalia's stolen DNA, igniting like a star. They reached the surface as the chasm collapsed. The jungle was silent. Saskia collapsed, her exoskeleton sparking. It's done, the weave's gone. Thalia stared at her infected arm. The glow was fading, the tendrils retreating. Is it? A single spore drifted from the ruins, landing on her wrist. It dissolved into her skin, leaving a faint green scar. Thalia walked until the jungle thinned, replaced by the ragged outskirts of a logging town. The sunrise painted the sky in hues of blood and gold. Her arm ached, the scar pulsing softly. In the town's diner, a news report crackled. Unexplained regeneration in the Amazon basin, new plant species emerging. She ordered coffee, her hand trembling as she lifted the cup. The liquid rippled, reflecting eyes that glowed ever so faintly. Outside, a vine cracked through the asphalt. Thalia smiled. Thalia stood at the edge of the pod's crater, her infected arm trembling. The jungle around her steamed with unnatural regeneration. Trees were growing from ash, vines knitting over charred soil, but the spire's ruins still smoldered, its core exposed like an open wound. Dr. Saskia Von's voice crackled through the ruined radio in her pack, warped by static. Burn it, and you erase us all. Not just them, our descendants, our future. Zorian emerged from the wreckage, his form flickering between human and hive. Half his face remained recognizably human, Ren's sharp jawline, Ludo's milky eye, the other half a lattice of roots and glowing fungi. You think this is a victory, he rasped, tendrils writhing from his fingertips. We are Thalia, just wiser. She gripped the flamethrower, its fuel gauge hovering near empty. Wiser, you turned people into monsters. Monsters, Zorian laughed, the sound echoing from the trees. Look at yourself. Thalia glanced at her reflection in a pool of blackened sludge. The infection had reached her neck, veins glowing emerald beneath her skin, the same bioluminescence she'd seen in Ren's eyes, in the hybrids of Purasa. Join us, Zorian said, stepping closer. The weave doesn't end individuality, it perfects it. No more loneliness, no more grief, your brother. A root lashed out, unfurling like a projector screen. A memory played in its fibers. Lucas, not as the drowned boy she'd mourned, but as an adult, his body half transformed, smiling as he walked through the future city of fused flesh and flora she'd glimpsed in the hive's visions. He's here, Thalia, alive, happy. She hesitated, the flamethrower trembled. The fire. A gunshot cracked, Zorian staggered, his chest blooming red. Thalia turned to see Ren, or what was left of him, his mutated body riddled with shrapnel wounds from the outpost explosion, his human hand still clutching a smoking pistol. Do it now, he gurgled, collapsing into the mud. Zorian snarled, roots surging toward her. Thalia pulled the trigger. The fire roared to life, engulfing the pod's core. Zorian screamed, his form dissolving into ash. You'll doom us all, he cried, his voice fracturing into a chorus of 1,000 futures. We could have been gods. The spire imploded. A shockwave ripped through the jungle, flattening trees, and reducing the hybrids to dust. Thalia fell to her knees, shielding her face as the inferno spread, purging the hive's biomass in a cleansing wave. The aftermath. Dawn broke over a silent rainforest. Thalia crawled from the ashes, her body singed, her lungs raw. The meadow of unnaturally large flowers from a previous scene had vanished, replaced by ordinary ferns and moss. The river ran clear again, its banks teeming with unmutated capybaras and macaws. But the villagers were gone. Ren, Ludo, even the loggers' bodies had disintegrated, their remains absorbed into the reborn jungle. Dr. Von's final message played on a loop in her head. The pod wasn't just a seed, it was a bridge. Destroying it severs the timeline. Your future, our future, it never happens now. Thalia stumbled to the river, drinking greedily. Her reflection stared back. The infection's glow had faded, her eye brown again. It's over. Then she noticed her hands. Tiny tendrils sprouted from her cuticles, wriggling like earthworms, a weaker echo of the infection she'd carried. She scrubbed them frantically, but they burrowed back under her skin, leaving faint green trails. In the distance, a howler monkey screamed, a normal, earthly sound. But as Thalia stood, she heard something else beneath it, a harmonized hum, soft and persistent, vibrating in her teeth. The jungle breathed around her, alive in a way it had never been before. Thalia walked north, toward the research outpost, toward a world that would never know what she'd erased. Behind her, a single spore drifted on the wind. It landed. It grew.